Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I just took my son and a friend and his son deer hunting this morning. They didn't see a single deer, which is that's the first time this year that somebody has not seen a single deer. Seen a lot of deer this year. Let's get this going. Listen to what this man's talking about inflation.
They really had lost sight of business cycle experience and theory. Because in an early stage expansion, the inflation rate needs to come down. Mm-hmm. And they thought that letting the inflation rate go up would be beneficial. And there's no question that there are certain parts of our economy that did benefit, unquestionably. But the issue is not whether 15% or 10% were made a lot better off. The issue is what happened to the majority of your households in the inflation.
Right.
And they were absolutely clocked. And so the Federal Reserve, in conjunction with the melding of monetary and fiscal policy, produced these counterproductive results. And now the Federal Reserve is going to have to try to reverse it by tapering and possibly raising the rates. And in fact, the odds of making that work, the empirical odds are not good. In fact, the Federal Reserve's record is quite checkered. We hang off their words, we react to them. They can make some surprise statement that can cause all kinds of volatility. But the fact of the matter is, these various pronouncements and the actions by the Federal Reserve have destabilized the economy. We've gotten worse results, not better results.
The Federal Reserve is one big lie, in case you haven't figured it out yet. Speaking of lies, I think this is a conversation going on at the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Listen to this. This is creepy too.
It should be accessible when people need to know, but I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? Like, my insurance company doesn't tell me what they're doing with my assets. They just assume.
I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but you know what it reminds me of? Remember how I've told you on this channel about bailouts and how I'll never forget it, when Hank Paulson during the financial crisis had to kneel to that lunatic nutcase, Nancy Pelosi, had to kneel to her to get her to pass TARP so that they could do the bailouts and Wall Street could bail out their friends. This time they're not going to do that, folks. Jim Rickards has talked about it before too. This time they're not going to do that. They've written bail-ins into the documentation at these banks, and I believe that that's what Gary Cohn is talking about. I don't know it because I don't have the whole clip. But if there was one thing that they would not want to tell the public about and to freak them out, it would be having written in bail-in language into what the banks could do in the next crisis. And you know what bail-in means? Bail-in means they close the bank for the weekend, and then they say, you know what? It's your patriotic duty. We just need to shave 10% off of your bank account if you have over 100,000, say, in your bank account. And you think that's crazy? Go type in Cyprus bail-ins. They've already run their first trial run on this before. It happened in 2013, as I recall. One interesting thing of note is when they did do the bail-ins in Cyprus, do you know what skyrocketed? That would be Bitcoin and crypto when they did it the first time. And it would happen again too, I would imagine.
With my assets, they just assume they're going to pay my claim, right? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do, that we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking
In other
system.
words, we want to lie to them.
They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in. They're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd of people that are in the institutional side. And if they want to understand this, they're going to find a way to understand this. There's a bunch of law firms represented in this room. There's a bunch of people that charge them by the hour.
Right. Let's keep it between us, is what he means.
To explain this all to them, and it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And they all have huge staffs. But I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out.
Unintended consequences. These people ought to be ashamed of themselves, but they're not. I'm writing that down. Unintended consequences. See, for these people, unintended consequences means we can't tell people the truth. That's what it means. Now, folks, if you think that you're standing on stable ground with the financial system, you need to think again. Gold buying binge. This is from Molly Elmore, who did an excellent interview with Jimmy Valley. I showed you some of that. Last time this level of buying was seen marked a historical turning point for the global monetary system. 1967, European central banks bought massive volumes of gold from the United States, leading to a run on the price and collapse of the London gold pool of reserves. That hastened the eventual demise of Bretton Woods system that tied the value of U.S. dollar to precious metal. Then there's this. The Austrian mint can't keep up with the demand for gold. At the moment, every gold coin that comes off the coining press has already been sold, says Austrian Mint's chief executive Gerhard Starsic. What a cool last name. Right now, we could sell 3 times as many as we were able to produce. Folks, guess what? You know the drill. That's why one of my sponsors is Glint, who has what I consider to be a revolutionary type product. You open a Glint account, you get a debit MasterCard so that you can literally spend your gold with a piece of plastic, with a debit MasterCard. Okay? What I do is I have some gold in my Glint account so that I have my card with that, and then I also buy physical gold. Okay? The link to that is in the very top of the description of this video. Now, I want to bring your attention to this guy. This guy says he calls himself an SEC critic. He's actually just the opposite of that. His name is, John Reed Stark. Well, this guy has been on Twitter for the last few months defending Gary Gensler every chance he gets. Just the other day, he retweeted the picture of Sam Bankman-Fried flying in first class. He said, "This is very disturbing," or something to that effect. I retweeted it, and I said, it's almost as disturbing as the fact that the SEC and the CFTC were having planning sessions with SBF and FTX. Almost. And when I did that, he blocked me. Okay? That's who you're dealing with here.
Back to investors getting hosed, though, in this whole situation, because this does concern the SEC. You just mentioned a long laundry list of the protections that did not exist when it came to oversight for FTX. What agency, who should be ashamed that we are in this situation where customers have lost their money and have no claims on anything coming out in bankruptcy?
Well, wait a minute, Melissa. As far as being ashamed, look at what the SEC has done. Look, I'm an SEC critic. I worked at the SEC for almost 20 years.
Was this completely just not their fault? I mean, shouldn't they be protected? Somebody should be protecting investors.
Well, let's look at what the SEC has done. They brought over 120 cases in the area of crypto. They've won every single one of them. They stopped initial coin offerings. Right. They stopped lending programs. They stopped simple agreements for future tokens. They stopped Coinbase from doing a lending program before they even got started.
They didn't stop ETH Lend, which is, what's it called now? They didn't go after any Ethereum-based lending products.
Stopped Bitcoin spot ETF from Grayscale, which would have caused extraordinary damage. So the SEC has been very aggressive.
They didn't stop Luna. They didn't stop Celsius. They didn't stop FTX.
They're going to be more aggressive when it comes to these crypto intermediaries, Melissa. They're Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, Gurbir Grewal, the enforcement director, and David Hirsch, the head of the crypto unit, have all said that these crypto intermediaries need to get into compliance, and they keep saying the same line over and over.
As a critic of the SEC, then what do you make of the
big sweep of these
John?
entities.
All right. And so then we have this, and just a reminder, all these people are working in conjunction to hand Wall Street the monopoly on crypto. Write it down, folks.
Hey, John, just to follow up on that, I don't understand it. I've had other people kind of tell me a similar thing, that the customers aren't necessarily creditors and that they'd be further down the line. But I don't get it. They're the only ones who had actual skin in the game in a lot of these circumstances. Why do they get?
No, I agree, and it's hard for us to really get our arms around this, because customers in this situation, if you had your money and your stocks, if you had your stocks at Merrill Lynch or J.P. Morgan or Goldman Sachs or wherever, and there was some sort of financial catastrophe, those would still belong to you. But in the upside down world of crypto, where there's no oversight, there's total commingling, there's no examinations, no audits, no net.
It's because Gary Gensler and friends intentionally will not let there be similar rules. They won't allow any of this. They've intentionally not allowed it so that these kind of things could happen, and then they could hold their hand up and say, see, we told you so. We're going to have to shut these down. And by the way, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Fidelity, they've all now got custody. You can just put it there. You don't need these guys. See how this works?
Requirements, no insurance, no consumer protections, nothing. All of this is sort of, and based on whatever agreement you have in terms of your terms of service, all of these assets are very difficult to nail down and associate with a particular individual. And that's the duty of the trustee. They can't just hand out money without deciding, or hand out any sort of asset without deciding whose belongs to. But in a traditional context, none of these silly decisions would need to be made. What's yours would be yours.
Okay, enough of that. So Bob Way is officially back on the scene, and I wanted to show you this. This guy right here asks it. Remember, Bob Way was one of the first 10 people at Ripple, okay? And he was in social media for quite a while, a couple of years ago, then he disappeared. This person says, what is XRP2? Some people are afraid of Ripple using some different token and leaving XRP speculative without use case in the future. What's your opinion about it? Also, do you see Sologenic Exchange turning into something big in the future? This person says XRP2 is a subsidiary of Ripple, not a token. Nothing to worry about. And Bob Way says, thanks for posting this. Quite correct. Okay? So he's saying there's nothing to see here on this XRP2 thing. Now, here's an interesting little video on Navati. Listen to this.
If you look at some of the disruption in payments and financial services, part of it is about just becoming a participant and breaking the shackles of traditional banking or traditional networks, being able to compress commercial relationships that, say, the banks have been able to build for 40 or 50 years. Disruption is not just about technology, but it's about becoming a part of an ecosystem, being able to participate. Yes, Peter Cook, I'm the CEO of Navati Group Limited. We've been listed on the Australian Stock Exchange for about 6 years and have been a partner in RippleNet for about 2 years. Our customers break into two, other fintechs, banks, financial intermediaries, where we are primarily providing an infrastructure layer or ecosystem for them to enable them to further their financial services and payments. And then we've got many hundreds of end merchants and businesses that use us to complete payments, whether it be issuing, acquiring, or cross-border payment services. So our clients are B2B payments companies. So essentially right through that consumer to business to RippleNet network through to the final receiving party, we're getting faster transactions. We pride ourselves on having financial services licenses in a number of jurisdictions and actually right at the moment in the final stages of getting a bank license in Australia. We can use our licenses, we can use our tech, we can use our market position, join with RippleNet and meet others that are in similar positions and create a super network effect.
Good stuff. Okay, wanted to finish with this. Turns out Brad Garlinghouse is, looks like he's got his legs wet, his jeans wet. He's with the Palm Tree crew. I guess this is Let's see who this guy's at. Miles Shear, Palm Tree Crew. And that reminds me, I think Brad Garlinghouse was in Miami at one time, and they had all these palm tree necklaces on. So this is like some kind of group that I guess this guy runs. Pretty cool. He looks like they're hanging on yachts. I like it. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that Brad Garlinghouse is hanging on yachts, and I like it. Pretty cool.